one of the things that happens in the Tatsahara kitchen is the Tenzo plans the meals. And then doesn't just say like haphazardly, just like, okay, just go make the meal. It's like if you're cutting a carrot, they'll cut a little piece of carrot and show you how they would like the carrot to be cut for the dish. I mean, there's a beautiful particularity to everything, not because it's right or wrong. You could cut it another way, but it's just in this moment to bring harmony. This is how we're all going to work together. And then something beautiful happens. So when I said, Suzuki Roshi said, just to be alive is enough, it's true. And we all know being human is not so easy. Maybe we need some wise help. It says, cut the carrot just this way for this time. But another way to think about it, which Marianne's going to help us think about it, is the 16 Bodhisattva precepts are ways to live, handed down by the ancients, by a wise person who says, you might want to try it this way. We've been thinking about this for a while. And if you follow this precept or find out what it means in your life will more and more be a beautiful meal for yourself and for the world. And we'll learn from our mistakes because we're human. There's just no way you're ever going to get this right. And it's so completely right and wonderful just to pick up these beautiful ingredients of the precepts and to bring them forward in our lives. Anyway, that's a little introduction. And now we'll see what Marianne has to say. Okay. Scary. Could be scary. Uh-oh. Knife. When you're in the kitchen, you're carrying a knife. You let people know. No, I know. Should we trade places? Yeah, we'll trade places.
Need a support cushion too, but for the other knee. Am I oriented okay to the computer and everything? And okay, let's do the before lecture chant. And unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect Dharma. In 100,000 million kalpas, having it to see and listen to remember and accept. I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata.
I'm going to let you time.
Oh God, it is a time machine. I'll time. Yes. No, well. Yeah, will it stay open like that? I'll do my best. Chris was maybe not going to be here today, which is why she asked me to do this talk, because you had your due, right? But then I guess you've been released. So she's here and I'm here, but I get to do this talk. And Chris asked me to speak about the precepts, and also to incorporate a little with the Tenzo Kyoku. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to speak a little in general about the precepts, and then using this wonderful book, many of you are familiar, but you may not be, Waking Up to What You Do by Diane Eshin Rossetto. I want to talk about how a little process she has for working with precepts, and with an example of how I've been working with one particular one. And then at the end, toward the end, I'm going to bring it back to the Tenzo Kyoku. And so that's the plan. We'll see how this goes. Well, Chris kind of alluded to this in the beginning, that these precepts, you know, the 16 precepts, they're friendly. I view them as very friendly and supportive. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking, well, gosh, the precepts aren't judgmental. They don't invite me to be judgmental. Actually, just the opposite. They tell me, like a friend would say, you know, Marianne, if you kind of follow and do it this way, you're gonna be happier. Your life will be happier. Try it, you'll like it. Do you remember that slogan from like a really long time ago? Try it, you'll like it. I'm thinking about that with the precepts. And so I view them as very friendly, or a friend helping me. So I want to speak first about the first 6 precepts in very general, very briefly, because there's 16, right? But the first 3 are the refuges. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Sangha. It's like, it's setting the ground. You come home, we come home. All these other precepts are grounded in the reminder that our lives are held in the life of Buddha, in the life of awakening, in the life of the Dharma, the teachings, but the Dharma and teachings of every moment. And our lives are held by the Sangha. And that we get the strength to practice these precepts because we are taking refuge. We're coming home to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And then the 3 pure precepts are I vow. So my intention, what I'm going to want to do, what I offer my life to, is I vow to avoid action that causes suffering. That's my vow. Don't know if I can manage it, but that's my intention. And my intention, my vow, is to do all action that creates true happiness. And then the 3rd one is, I vow to act with others always in mind. So that's kind of the refuges, and the 3 pure precepts are what hold us, and then what our vow is. Then the 10, what are they called? Prohibitory, often precepts, because they often start with a prohibition. In my mind, these are the real friends, because that are speaking to me, because they're saying, try it this way, do it this way. This is how you can enact that vow of not to do harm, to do things that are helpful and beneficial. This is how you do it. So I'm taking now some from Waking Up to What You Do. Diane Ishin Rossetto, in her book, in her beginning, she speaks about the jewel net of Indra. Many of you are familiar with this idea, this image of the jewel net of Indra, but she sets it as a foundation. I want to read a few words from her. There's a metaphor from the ancient Buddhist Avatamsaka Sutra that conceives the universe as an enormous net, extending infinitely in all directions, protecting and nurturing all of life, nothing excluded. At the juncture of each knot of the net, there's a shiny, multifaceted, reflective jewel. Because of its many sides, each jewel reflects every other jewel in a vast network of mutual support of each other's existence. No jewel exists without the other jewels. No jewel stands alone. All are interdependent on the presence of others. And I didn't quote this part, but she goes on to say how no jewel, and we might conceive all things ourselves, all things as these jewels, actually they're not static. They don't even stay the same. They're moving around all the time. So it's not like I'm a jewel, I'm right here, and you're a jewel. It's not like that. It's moving, moving, moving. But it's this vastness. And we're held in that. We're part of it. But then at the beginning of this chapter, that's entitled The Dream of Self, she places this other quote, which is relevant. And this is a quote from the practice principles that are recited every day at the Ordinary Mind Zen School. And this is how they go. Caught in a dream of self, only suffering. holding to self-centered, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. So I see that as moving into the 10 prohibitory precepts. It's like, yes, my ideas of myself, I'm caught in this dream. It's not real. Remember that, Marianne. And this dream, it just brings suffering, these ideas. Holding to these self-centered thoughts, that is the dream. It's not helpful. Each moment meeting life as it is, that's the teacher. Moment, moment, moment. Being just this moment, compassion's way, that's where compassion will arise. So, as what I want to do now is talk about some steps that I've distilled from Waking Up to What You Do that she suggests for how to work with a particular precept, with any precept. These are steps you can follow, and I've really distilled this down, simplified it. So I want to encourage you to get this book, and the material here comes from the chapter entitled The Process. And she goes into a whole lot more detail than I'm gonna. But the first thing she says, pay attention to your behavior and choose a precept to focus on that seems relevant to your behavior. Well, this is something I've been doing over the past few months. And so I had noticed that one particular precept was really jumping up as one I was having difficulty with. And that precept is, in the version I'm using, a disciple of the Buddha is not possessive of anything. A disciple of the Buddha is generous. So I noticed that was coming up. So that's one I've resolved to work with, and I've been holding it close for a few months. The language is in this translation of the precepts is important because it starts out, a disciple of the Buddha is not possessive. A disciple of the Buddha is generous. Each one, it reminds me, oh yes, I'm a disciple of Buddha. I'm a child of awakening, a little ever-changing dot in Indra's wondrous net. It encourages me to then really go into the precept. So just thinking about this one, it's not, a disciple of the Buddha is not possessive of anything. Possessive implies grasping to me, holding on, you know, this gesture here, a clenching in. It's got, so that's where I'm starting, this. So I've been carrying it kind of like a koan. And I've noticed, well, first let me say, her next thing is where the noticing happens. She says, once you choose your precept, then notice, engage your inner observer. Just notice, don't judge, don't try to change anything. Just notice your behavior. And so as I've noticed that this a disciple of the Buddha is not possessive of anything, can apply to, you know, concrete things like money or food or my time or my place in line at the grocery store. Or I've noticed it popping up driving, like, oh, I'm possessive of my place in Highway 12 and I don't want to let that car in. They really want to get in, I can tell, but no, I've noticed this, you know? So these are everything in the concrete world. And then as I was just noticing and being curious, not trying to change my behavior, just being curious, I noticed in the realm of interpersonal relationships, I've got a lot of possessiveness going on in terms of possessiveness of my ideas about people or situations, or possessiveness of my views, how I view a situation. I'm possessive of all my ideas, grasping them. I don't want to let them go. It's very lonely. And that's the next thing she says is, once you notice these situations, notice the feelings, the thoughts, the body sensations that come up, and make these habitual actions, this habitual possessing and having to control, come into focus. Let your curiosity about it deepen, but really notice physically sensations, notice emotions, and notice thoughts. So I notice in these situations, whether it's a concrete thing or whether it's interpersonal, I notice my stomach tightens. I notice I breathe more up here. I notice my jaw clenches. These are good things to notice. And then I notice underneath fear, anxiety, somehow, and thoughts, I'm not going to get enough, or I won't make it in time, or this person is threatening to me, everything that I think they think and believe, it threatens me. I need to hold on and protect myself. I notice thoughts like that happening. So, and I notice judgmental thoughts about people. So that's getting me somewhere. I'm starting to see how it's working. Then she says, wait, gotta turn over the page. She says, now, eventually begin to actually engage the precept as a stop sign. So let it be a stop. See what comes up. And I think of that stop sign more as the way, Thich Nhat Hanh speaks of things like this as a bell of mindfulness. Ding, oh, there's that tightening again. Oh, there's those thoughts and judgments about this person that I'm holding on to, being possessive of. Okay, that's a stop sign. That means take a few breaths. What needs to happen right now? Can I release it all? Or am I just too driven? Do I need to drive on by and not let that person in? I mean, what's really important in this moment? It helps me evaluate and get ready to perhaps try a new action. And that's what her last suggestion is. Gradually try out engaging the positive aspect of the precept. Be curious. Again, noticing feelings, sensations, whatever. So in this precept, a disciple of the Buddha is not possessive of anything. The positive aspect is a disciple of the Buddha is generous. So how can I engage that generous aspect of the precept? I think I need to give some examples. What are my examples? Well, here's a simple one. Like Lori, my wife, and I, we make dinner, and often I serve it up, or maybe it's dessert, right? Ice cream. And I noticed that one bowl has a little more in it than the other. Usually I want that big bowl. And it seems like a simple thing, but it's a practice to be generous. And so and Lori's actually taught me this because she already does this naturally. I give her the bigger bowl. I give her the bigger portion. And I try to do that as a matter of practice and course. And it feels pretty good. I feel good. I feel released. It's the same with the produce from my garden. The other day I had a bunch of squash. I already had a bunch of squash in my fridge. I thought, well, I'll give one squash to the community where I live. I thought, then I noticed this precept, and it's like, okay, really. You could give all three of these. You've already got several. So I put them down on the table and man, they were gone in a few, like in an hour. People took them and, you know, that felt good. I felt more connected to my community. And then there's some people in my community and in other places that I don't actually like. I mean, when they come around, I have these beliefs about them. Oh, they think this way, or oh, they act that way, or oh, and I immediately am putting up all my barriers. So if I engage this precept, I've got to breathe and try in conversation with them to deeply listen, to really listen. Where are they coming from? That's generosity, giving the gift, the generous gift of listening, of paying attention, of meeting Buddha to Buddha in the moment. One other example, and then I'm going to go on to bringing it back to the Tenzo Kyokun. This one other example is when Lori and I were in Australia about 6 weeks ago. I think most of you know I got COVID in the middle of it. We'd been traveling and doing a bunch of stuff, and then I got COVID. We had to cancel an 8-day camping trip that had been what I most was looking forward to. And I grieved it, but then I was working with this precept. And okay, a disciple of the Buddha is not possessive of anything. Could I release that idea of what our trip was going to be? It was going to be this great 8-day camping trip, watching the stars, you know, doing all this stuff. Can I release that? Can I be generous toward myself and Lori and toward our trip and open to what is really here in this moment? And what was really there was 7 days in a really lovely hotel in downtown Melbourne. And with time to, well, I did open to it. We did. And we really enjoyed it. We needed those 7 days to just stop the sightseeing, stop the moving around, rest, connect, read. I read 3 books. We watched Australian TV. I watched the Australian news, which is quite different. I wouldn't have paid attention to that otherwise. We learned about Australian football, footy, which is a fantastic game. All of these benefits, and we did room service. Pretty cool. So that was another way of engaging the positive aspect of the precept. And it's ongoing. The more you choose a precept and work with it, you see it popping up everywhere. Well, so I want to bring it back to the Tenzo Kyokun for a few minutes. And I could speak about many things in it that apply, but what I want to talk about is the section, and Chris has already read it and talked about it, but it's too bad, I'm going to do it too. It's the part about joyful mind, parental mind, and magnanimous mind, because I think the attitudes of those 3 minds, when we take it seriously and practice them too, or hold them in our hearts, they ground us and support us as we practice the precepts. You know, they go through. So Dogen, speaking of all 3, says in it, actually, when working in any position of responsibility, not only as a Tenzo, but as an officer or assistant, strive to maintain a spirit of joy, and this is such a hard word, and magnanimity, along with the caring attitude of a parent. And I saw that almost as a prayer. May joyful mind, may parental or kind mind, may magnanimous mind inform my steps, my thoughts, my actions in this day. So that's how I take that, as just beginning every day. I just thought of that, so I think I may have to start practicing that. I haven't done that yet, but as a prayer every morning. Then he talks about joyful mind. He says, A joyful mind is one of gratefulness and buoyancy. You should consider this carefully. If you had been born into some heavenly realm, you would most likely have only become attached to the pleasures of that realm, taking neither time nor opportunity to awaken the Bodhi spirit, nor would you be likely to feel any particular necessity for practicing the Buddha Dharma. So, in other words, we're really lucky that we live in this world of troubles, because this is where we can wake up. This is where we feel the almost compulsion to wake up. We must, we want to practice Bodhi mind. We're put in situations of difficulty, and confusion and things. What a gift. So be grateful, be joyful when something crappy happens, or you can't manage this, or it really seems awful. You can bring some energy there because it's a gift. You might be able to wake up in the middle of it. Then he speaks about parental mind. He said Roshin is the mind, or I guess Roshin must be it in Japanese, I'm not sure. But it says Roshin is the mind or attitude of a parent. In the same way that a parent cares for an only child, keep the three treasures in your mind. And I think of this as as I thought of this, keeping the three treasures, like I said at the beginning, it grounds us. And then I thought of the Metta Sutta that we chant often. And it says, even as a mother at the risk of her life watches over and protects her only child, so with a boundless mind should one cherish all living things, suffusing love over the entire world, above, below, and all around, without limit. So let one cultivate an infinite goodwill toward the whole world. I find it's like, oh yes, this encourages me. Like a parent, like a grandparent, like a kind friend would encourage me. Parental mind, kind mind, helps and encourages us in our practice. We call upon parental, grandmotherly, kind mind to support us as we work with the precepts. We keep this attitude front and center, and we find our hearts open to others and to ourselves. We get kinder to ourselves when we fail, when we mess up, when we can't manage whatever we had hoped to manage or be the person we'd hoped to be. We have to let all those images of good girl Marianne, good girl, bad girl Marianne, that's being possessive, right? Just let it all go. A kind parent would be generous toward you. They might also say, yeah, that's kind of graspy, but maybe you can engage a precept, but they would do it with love. There would be love there. We can bring kind parental grandmotherly mind to our exploration, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you can even visualize a kind parental face looking at you with love, helping you have the courage to notice your senses, your feelings, your thoughts, and encouraging you to drop some of the pain. Well, and old patterns. So then this brings us to the last part, magnanimous mind. Dogen says, magnanimous mind is like a mountain, stable and impartial, exemplifying the ocean. It's tolerant and views everything from the broadest perspective. Having a magnanimous mind means being without prejudice and refusing to take sides. When carrying something that weighs an ounce, do not think of it as light. And likewise, when you have to carry 50 pounds, don't think of it as heavy. Don't get carried away by the sounds of spring, nor become heavy-hearted upon seeing the colors of fall. View the changes of the seasons as a whole, and weigh the relativeness of light and heavy from a broad perspective. So in other words, don't get bogged down. Don't get bogged down in judgments, in anything like that. just go back and rest in a magnanimous view when you notice yourself getting bogged down. And a magnanimous view where we don't count something light as light or heavy as heavy, you know, where we just open to everything. It really helps. Like sometimes when the going gets hard, I might want to get bogged down, or when things are easy, I can get inflated. Oh, I'm perfect. I'm doing all right. Not. But magnanimous mind says, no, accept